welcome to Happy Catastrophe, and thank you for visiting today. I have been thinking so much about all of you, and I just want you to know that you are on my mind a lot. So I hope that you are well and you are happy, and today we are talking about this new mystery by Morgan O'Brien, Any Day. Now, it's the first mystery, I believe, is how it's pronounced. The accent is over the E, so it could be Année Day. I'm calling her Any Day or Annie Day because I think that's funny. Because this is a soft living coloring book, and it really is the adventures of Annie here going throughout her day, and it could be any day. So I think that's a little tongue-in-cheek by Morgan O'Brien, that it's Annie Day, and it's any day in the life of Annie Day. All right, I think I have beleaguered that point enough. So the mystery of this is that Morgan O'Brien listened to how we complain about the regular paper in the Matchstick Mouse. Now, we love Matchstick Mouse, right? And we love the whole storyline. And as we're following along this little mouse as they go through their day and interact with all of their friends. Now, the first difference we see between the Matchstick Mouse series and this new series, Any Day, is that Any Day she doesn't necessarily have animal friends that she interacts with, except there is an appearance of Matchstick Mouse. Other than that, she is doing her day there, and there is a hedgehog. But she is often, when she's with animals, she's either alone or she's with animals that are more her pets, or, except for the hedgehog, or something that she's taking care of. For example, she has chickens, she has a pig, she has a horse. She's on like a little farm, and she's taking care of her animals. She's drawing Matchstick Mouse, which is a lot of fun, taking a bath. So it's a lot. She has a lot more time solitary or taking care of others. I feel like, and maybe I'm reading too much into it, but I feel like this is something that we could use right now. And I think it's so thoughtful and kind of Morgan O'Brien to put out something like this, a soft living coloring book. In a world of anxiety, I find, and how the world is getting more and more terrifying every day, I feel that this is a book that I need to have in my collection. Because when I open it up and go to color something like this, I mean, it's as happiness inducing as Matchstick Mouse is, but it's also calming in what she's doing. She's just calm. There's nothing too exciting. There's nothing too outrageous. There's nothing really going on except soft, calm, soothing events. And I just find this book extremely calming to just even thumb through and look at her and all of the things that she does, the mindfulness that she portrays, the presentness that she is all about. Look, I mean, just how it just seems that everything she is doing, she is taking time to do. And it is extremely soothing. So one thing we're going to talk about in this video, though, is it worth the purchase? And for that alone, I say yes, definitely get this book. This book is just really lovely. And I feel like just one more step forward than Morgan O'Brien is doing on his coloring journey and how he connects with all of us through his artwork. It's just very needed in this time. Now, the nuts and bolts of this video, however, are about what format is it worth buying? Because he has this in the standard, what he's calling the standard edition, which is like, and I don't have that one purchased, but it's exactly like we know Matchstick Mouse to be. It is, paper that is a little thin. You can read right through it. You can see your hand through it. Alcohol markers go through it pretty easily. But it's a little bit rough. It has a little bit of texture. And so people have been successfully using pencil, and you can hear it. There's a tiny bit of texture, but it is very light. And you can see as I flip through this, how light that is. So Any Day in this format is $7.99 or $7.50, somewhere around there. Any Day in the premium version is twice that. It's $15.50. $15.50. Now, I'm used to a $15 book being like this. And in fact, I went on Amazon last night, and you can't even get a Kirby book for 15 bucks anymore. They're all under 10. The most I saw, I think, was a pre-order for another compilation one he's got coming out, and that one is around 15. But all of his are like $10, $11. Now, this is thick quality paper. You can use wet mediums on this. You can use pencils. This is all paint and pencils that I've used. It's thick. The pages fall quickly because they are heavy. They're a heavy weight. Here, this picture I did, I used all paints. So wet mediums work on this really well. It is kind of smooth, but pencils seem to work just fine. This one is pencils and paint. And all of these mediums work. You can use anything except, of course, for alcohol markers in this, because it's double-sided. And this is what I would say is a $15 book. And for this one, again, this is watercolor pencils and pencils and some glitter felt pen. So this is what I would expect to pay $15 for. There's lots of pages. It's thick. It's got this quality paper that you can just hear. So I was surprised, and not happily so, when I received this for $15. So this is not quality paper. It's still very light paper, as you can hear. It is slightly heavier. If we pull the original Matchstick Mouse out and we try to compare weights, now it's advertised that this paper is 80 to 127 GSM. I guess it depends on the Amazon printing warehouse near you, what paper they have in. It's a pretty big range, but even so, 127 is not that. And this, you can see how thin that is. Let's check it out here. It's about the same. I mean, there is a little bit difference, yes. I would say that, yeah, this is like just a fraction of a bit heavier. It's really not. The difference is the type of paper. So side by side, you can really see the difference here. I would say the weight is not worth double the cost for sure. The weight of this is so minuscule more than this that it's not worth the $15. However, when you look at the texture on the paper, hear this one? This one has a little bit of texture to it. We're able to use pencils on it. I mean, a teeny bit, but there is a little bit. You can feel it when you run your hand over it. It's not completely smooth. Now this one is very smooth. I know some people think it has more texture than this, but I would have to disagree with that. This feels rougher, kind of more like newspaper would feel, like a roughness. This feels like magazine paper. This is really close to being what a magazine page is. And if I grab a magazine here, they are very similar. If this had a shiny coat, this would be magazine paper. So I don't think that's $15 worth of paper. Now let's look at the other differences on this paper. The other big difference is the coloring. Now, I don't know if artists get to actually feel and see a sample of the paper before they order, but if you showed me this on a screen and offered it, I would think this was a textured piece of paper. I mean, it looks it. It looks like it's textured. However, that's just printed on. It's not real texture. It's just colored on the paper. And it's why? The only reason I can think of why is to make it look like it's heavier watercolor paper. Because why would you color paper like that? Put these little shadows in it. I mean, there's no texture on it. It's smooth like a magazine. It just looks textured. So the only reason I can think of doing that is to fool somebody and make it look like it's watercolor paper and thicker. Now, they feel absolutely different with this being smooth like a magazine, this being rough, a little bit rougher, more like newspaper. And the other huge difference is the coloring. You're going to have the bright white in the regular paper. This is very much colored a cream color. It's really obvious. Cream with, like I say, this darker, this like light gray coloring in it to make it look like it has texture. So that could be a detriment for you. Just based on that, you may decide, I don't want a page that already has color on it. I prefer to have a crisp white palette for me to put colors on. And I totally understand that. And in fact, when I got this book, that's immediately what I saw. In fact, when I first got this book, I have to admit, I was angry. I was angry that I paid $15.50 for this, for paper that wasn't any thicker than magazine paper, that was colored already, had fake texturing on it. I was ready to bundle up and send it back with a really negative review. But then I realized the review is attached to Morgan O'Brien, and I'm not so sure Morgan O'Brien is in tune with what we need to color on paper. He colors his images on his iPad, and so he may just not quite understand. And he may also be a victim of trickery by Amazon, thinking this paper was better than it was. I have never, ever received a book that had paper like this. So this is something, maybe it's new, and maybe looking at it on screen, it looked like it was much better paper and worth the money. But I can 100% guarantee you that this is not worth $15. However, I calmed down and because I don't have $15 in my pocket to spare, but I thought, well, I need to color in it and just to see what the difference is. So last night, because I just received this yesterday, last night I sat down and colored this page. Now, at first, I just want to show you this. I'll tell you, my medium of choice for anything that's single-sided and for anything I can get away with is alcohol markers. They're my favorite medium. So I use alcohol markers in this, and I wanted to compare apples to apples, so I used alcohol markers on this one as well. At first, while I was coloring this, the first thing I noticed is that because this paper is smooth and has some kind of coating on it, it's kind of plasticky feeling, kind of magazine paper feeling. The first thing I noticed was that the alcohol markers do not soak in as quickly. Well, they do, but they don't soak into the fibers of the paper. Whereas this sort of paper is very thirsty and will soak up some of the colors, and it's a little bit harder to blend, as you can see, because it soaks into the fiber of the paper. It still goes through the paper, but this paper is a little thirstier than this paper is. It sits on the surface a little longer on this paper. So it's easier to blend. Now, I on purpose made this not blendy because I wanted it to look like dirt poking through grass, but it's very easy to blend on this one, much easier than on this other paper. Con is that it bleeds really easy, so you have to be very careful with juicy markers. Pro is that you use less ink. So I found that my markers went further on this paper than on this paper. Now, I also, at first, thought my colors were going down truer, that they weren't changing color because of the paper like Amazon paper sometimes does. But in my head, I was thinking of like Spooky Girl and those Coco Wyo pages, those and Crook Crook. My alcohol markers do change colors once they soak into the paper, but I know what colors they change to, so I work with it and it's no problem. I was thinking the same thing about Matchstick Mouse, but then I went back and looked, and I don't think so. This is pretty true to the colors I was using. I looked at some other pages I did. I used some, I mean, this is pretty true. The colors are not changing. So I think they color the same. I think the colors stay as true on both of them. It's just they behave differently, and they're easier to blend on this slicker paper. Now, they soak through quickly though, but they don't soak into the fibers of the paper. They go straight through. So, I mean, it went through so much that I had to use two. I use actual magazine pages for blotter pages because usually it doesn't go through, but I had to use a couple layers of that. I mean, this went through really wet. So you're going to have to make sure to have really good plastic or several layers of cardstock behind, because it soaks right through this paper much faster than this paper, which is thirsty and absorbs it more. Other than that, so let's talk about my experience coloring this. So then coloring this, I have to say, I loved every second of it. It was a joy to use alcohol markers on this paper. Once I got used to the bleed factor and was much more careful, I was using so much less ink, and it flowed, and it was easier on my arthritic hands, and it was nice. And then when I got done and I looked, and sorry to bump you guys, and I looked at the final product with this weird colored paper, I kind of like it, because this is a book that evokes feelings of comfort and soothing and softness. And I felt that this colored paper accentuates that. It kind of makes it feel soft rather than the stark white of this, which just feels like, you know, the picture's on a piece of paper, and you don't really pay any attention to any of this. You're just looking at the picture. Whereas this feels like, oh, the picture has become part of the page, and the whole thing is a piece of artwork. I feel it's kind of like when an artist colors in the background for you. So it doesn't so much feel like, I don't know if it looks this way to you, but to me, this looks like an image just put on a piece of paper, and all this is sort of wasted space. But this feels like a complete picture to me. So for that reason, I actually like the patterned background. It would be a big problem if you decided to leave anything white. Like the reason I made these chickens barred rock chickens was that I was not happy leaving anything white, because it wasn't white, it was this. And so see, like her eye, I left that white there, and it's so small you can't really see the texturing. But if it was a large white area, you'd see this pattern through it, and that's not really what I was going for. So you can't really leave anything white, leave it uncolored, because it won't be white. It'll be this weird textured color. So this is Année Day, and I'm going to do a slower flip through and talk about my thoughts and some options, because I'm not the sort of person who's going to leave you with, well, you know, if it feels, you know, I mean, it's always your choice, but I actually do have an opinion here. And my opinion is that no, this is not worth $15.50. If you have $15.50 sitting around in your pocket that is burning a hole in your pocket, then I would say get this version, because the paper is interesting, especially if you use alcohol markers. Now, I am not a pencil expert. I've only been using pencils for a short time and don't have very many sets. I would like to see someone use a pencil with this paper, and that could compare what it's like using pencil here versus the regular paper, and also different sets. So here's a challenge to any of my pencil using friends. Would any of you like to put together a video explaining your experience of what it's like using pencils on this? As for other mediums, I would not use water mediums at all. I actually spilled a tiny bit of, I had a dropper full of alcohol, rubbing alcohol, 90%, which is what I use for cleaning my Copic markers and cleaning any alcohol ink up. And I spilled some on the edge of this, the corner of this, and it just basically dissolved the paper. I mean, this is the cover. And then it went through and it took the ink off the paper and the ink bled onto the next page. I mean, it was a disaster, and it wasn't that much. It was a dropper full of alcohol. So I think water mediums or any kind of really wet medium is just going to melt this paper. This paper just disintegrates. So I don't know how water-based markers would do. I haven't tried water-based markers because I have yet to figure out how to use them without making them streaky, and that drives me nuts. No matter what I do, I'm just not very good with water-based markers. So, but I don't know if I'd use them on this paper. This paper does not hold up well to wet. And even overly juicy alcohol markers would make this paper just disintegrate. More so than the cheaper paper, which seems to be a little bit tougher. This seems to be more delicate. And I don't know if it's just what it's made out of or if it's the slick finish that's on it, but it just kind of melts. Now, again, this is nothing bad about Morgan O'Brien. I don't know how to put this strong enough. Morgan O'Brien is a delight and a gift to our community. And on his Ko-Fi, or Ko-Fi, K-O-F-I, Ko-Fi website, which I found by Googling Morgan O'Brien art, and it's Brian with a B-R-I-E-N. I'll put the website here. If you go to his website and go to the Ko-Fi, he has a lot uploaded there for free. He is a giver. He has 2 full coloring books plus several individual pages that are downloadable for free. A couple of them he's asked for donations, but you don't have to if you don't want to. I did because I think his art is worth something. But his coloring books are completely free, and you can't even pay anything for them. Now, of course, he'll take donations through that site, but there is a lot of artwork that he has done and just given us as a gift. And that just fills my heart with gratitude to have such a lovely person in our coloring community. I think that he was trying with this book. I strongly lean towards the fact that he thought the paper was better than it is too. But again, for $15.50, I would have expected something like the paper in a Kirby book. A lot of us have purchased self-published books from artists on Etsy that is in greater paper, and maybe that's a choice for Morgan O'Brien. However, he lives in Ireland. So putting it on Amazon is probably also a gift to us because we could never, us in the States, I can't afford the shipping of a lot of these lovely books that people across the pond are making. And so having it on Amazon makes it easy access and free shipping, and it's wonderful. But if the only choices he's got publishing through Amazon are these 2 types of paper, and this one is twice as much, I would recommend getting the standard and not paying the $15 for this. Now, am I sad that I had this in my collection? I was when I first got it, but after coloring in it, I kind of like the new experience. I kind of like that it's different. I like that it ends up looking like a completed page. I still don't think it's worth $15.50, but I do like the look of the finished page, and I like what's happening here when I color. I really, really enjoyed coloring here because I'm not fighting the paper to do blending. So for alcohol marker artists, this paper is really kind of fun. It is. I don't know any other mediums. I'm not going to try using my other favorite medium is gouache and watercolors. And I'm not going to do that to this paper. That would just be a disaster. So I'm going to stick with alcohol markers. I usually don't bother with pencil shading in these types of books, but I might just to see how that works for me. But I didn't want to do that for you because if it doesn't work, I'm not adept enough with pencils to know if it's a problem with the paper or just me, if it's a user error, because I don't really know how to use all the pencils. Isn't this adorable? Little piggy. But I have to say, this is probably my favorite book Morgan O'Brien has ever put out. And I think a lot of it has to do with timing. And I needed something like this in my life right now and in my coloring collection that I could open and color and just lose myself in the peacefulness of Année Day's life and the presentness that she is in every moment. And I do have, if you like this book, but you're tired of the old paper and you don't want to overpay for this paper, there is a third option. Morgan O'Brien is on Instagram and on social medias a lot and listens to suggestions. And he did upload this onto his Ko-Fi, so it's downloadable PDF, which means you can go onto his Ko-Fi account and you can purchase it as a PDF for much, much less. So that is a really that's always a more affordable option to get coloring books. They're always cheaper than the fully printed version. And you can print them out on your own paper. Some people love that, some people hate that. I used to not be into that. I just started getting into it and find that I really love it. For me, it came down to having a system of storing them so that they didn't get damaged until I colored them. Only printing off a few so it doesn't use up all my ink, just printing off what I want, and then storing them afterwards in a way that I can still enjoy what I did. Because in a book, I can flip through it. So I have folders now that I have a storage system that I like, which is allowing me to download PDFs and enjoy them. So this is available via PDF. And then you can put it on whatever dang old paper you want to put it on. So that is an option. And then my coffee's here. That is an option that I would recommend for folks that want this book, but don't want the old paper and don't want to overpay for this paper. Now, if you're curious and you have $15 burning in your hole in your pocket, I'd recommend getting this and seeing what you think about it. It's different. And you might like it. Again, I don't think any of us are going to say it's worth $15.50 compared to what we do, the books we do get when we pay $15.50. This isn't anywhere close. But it has nothing on Morgan O'Brien's artwork. Now, the last mystery about this book is my favorite one, and that is, what is she? I went on Instagram to find out, and Morgan O'Brien is not saying. I'm going to keep stalking him to see if he ever says, but people at first thought a rabbit, and the problem is she has this long tail. Because she has these big ears, so maybe she's a rabbit. And then I thought a deer, but she doesn't have hooves. She actually has toes. So then Tammy Colors 2 did a video on this of her thoughts, and I highly recommend going and seeing her thoughts. And she thought maybe a dog. And I think that's a good guess. At the same time, I came up with fox. So it's possible that she's just a fantasy character and could be anything. She has really big ears, but fennec foxes have really long ears. I don't know. Here she looks like a rabbit. So maybe you could make her into different animals in different pictures, you know? She almost looks like a lamb, which would make sense for soft and peacefulness, that she could be a lamb. But again, she would need hooves, right? Right. So I don't know. So when I colored her as if she was some sort of a canine or a fox. But I'm not going to stick to one color palette with her, kind of like I do with Matchstick Mouse. I tend to make her the same colors all the time. But I think with Année, I'm going to do whatever suits my fancy in the moment. Live in the moment, just like Année Day is. Because Morgan O'Brien, in all of his wisdom and skill, has created a creature that anybody can see anything in her. And so you can make her into any number of animals. Maybe she's a dinosaur, you know? Who knows what she is? So really, really fun. I can't recommend, oh man, I'm so sorry about that. I get excited about this book. I can't recommend this book enough. I can't recommend this book enough. It is a wonderful book. The format really is up to you. If you're thrifty like me, I wouldn't purchase this premium version. I would get, well, I would probably, because I love this book so much, I love Matchstick Mouse. But then for me, the Matchstick Mouse is fun coloring, and I love looking at it again. But it doesn't hit me to my core, like I'll always well, how much fun is this? But I don't do any extra shading or anything, and I don't mind that it's on this paper. For Année, she hits a personal spot for me, and I really wanted something. From the moment I saw flip throughs of this and Morgan O'Brien's advertisement of it, I wanted it on better paper. Now, having experienced this, I am actually going to go to the Ko-Fi website and purchase the downloadable one so that I can have it on the paper that I want. This is not the paper that I want to color it on, but it's here. It is fun to use alcohol markers, but I think I'd like to use other things as well, so I'm going to get the downloadable one. I hope this was helpful to you and gave you some ideas about what, and maybe helped you form your own opinion over which ones of these that you want to purchase. And let me know what your thoughts are and what you decided to do down in the comments. Thank you very much. Thanks for joining. I'll see you in the next video.